Over the last few years, some of the most advanced engineering teams in the world have been quietly making a surprising shift. They are walking away from microservices and returning to monolithic architectures. The industry has long pushed the idea that monoliths are legacy problems to be escaped, while microservices are the modern destination for any serious company. But teams are discovering that splitting a system into distributed services before the organization is ready creates an operational nightmare. It introduces network latency, it heavily complicates testing, and often stalls development speed. The historical pain of the monolith actually came from chaotic codebases, not from the fact that they were deployed as a single unit. Architecture is a choice between disciplined modularity and unstructured chaos. This chart shows three architectures. First, the unstructured monolith, a tangled ball of mud combining UI, logic, and databases. Next, the modular monolith, strictly divided by capabilities, deployed as one application. Finally, microservices physically separate these modules into distinct containers, communicating across a network. If we move past the unstructured mess, we can focus on evaluating these two disciplined approaches based on your team's scale and maturity. Moving to microservices essentially exchanges the effort of internal code-based discipline for the heavy burden of distributed operational complexity. This quadrant maps trade-offs: architectural discipline versus operational overhead. The messy monolith sits bottom left, low discipline, high technical debt. The modular monolith is bottom right, strict discipline, low infrastructure costs. Microservices sit top right, perfect discipline required, plus high operational overhead for distributed networks. Microservices represent a high tax bracket. You should only enter that bracket when your organization's scale forces you to pay it. In a modular monolith, you group code by business capabilities. Everything related to payments lives in one place, entirely separate from enrollments. Because this all runs in a single process, you get immediate operational benefits. Database transactions are simpler, you have one deployment pipeline, and developers can easily debug the entire system on a single laptop. This diagram shows the critical rule. Payments and enrollments share a shell, but enrollments accesses payments data only through a controlled interface. When Rush developers bypass that interface to query tables directly, your clean architecture degrades into a big ball of mud. A shared physical database works well in a monolith, but only if your team enforces strict logical ownership over the data. Microservices enforce those boundaries by physical separation. Each unit is totally independent, holding its own database, and communicating only through a network API. This becomes necessary when an organization reaches a certain size. If you have hundreds of developers, you need autonomous release cycles, so teams don't block each other, and you need fault isolation, so a bug doesn't crash the entire platform. It also solves specific hardware constraints. If one module handles heavy video processing or AI compute, you can scale those specific servers without scaling the rest of the application. But the price for that autonomy includes network latency, distributed data consistency challenges, and the need for advanced observability tools to find where a bug originated. The safest way to transition is the Strangler Fig pattern. Instead of a full rewrite, you isolate one specific capability, extract it out of the monolith, and redirect traffic to this independent service. This allows you to wait for actual performance bottlenecks or team friction to emerge before you take action, rather than guessing about the future. Starting with a well-structured monolith provides the hard evidence required to prove which services actually justify the overhead of extraction. Your deployment architecture should reflect your current organizational reality, not industry fashion. We can map this decision process using a strict flowchart. Notice that the default starting position is always the modular monolith. First, look for organizational friction. Are your development teams frequently blocking each other's release cycles? Second, look for technical friction. Does one specific module require vastly different infrastructure or scaling rules than the rest? Finally, look at your operational readiness. Do you have the mature CI/CD pipelines and tracing tools to handle a distributed network? If any of these answers are no, the path routes you straight back to staying modular. Unless you are experiencing documented friction and possess the operational maturity to handle it, the mathematically correct choice is to stay modular. For startups and single engineering teams, the modular monolith is usually the right choice. You are prioritizing development velocity and lean infrastructure over infinite scaling capacity that you don't yet need. If you are a growing mid-sized company starting to feel internal friction, adopt internal, event-driven communication inside your monolith. It takes design discipline to ensure modules communicate strictly through internal events, but it guarantees a clean extraction path later. For scaling enterprises hitting hard limitations, isolate your highest pressure modules and move them into microservices. This move provides the team autonomy required for enterprise scale, provided you explicitly budget for the permanently higher operational overhead. Build the simplest architecture that supports your current constraints, not a hypothetical future. Because ultimately, a well-built modular monolith is the exact structural prerequisite required for a truly successful microservices architecture.